enter Week 4 against an injury-riddled and depleted 49ers team.
Yeah, both teams injury-riddled and depleted, Rich. But you mentioned, I never imagined we would be here in October and we turn the calendar and we're talking about a winless Eagles team, especially when you look at that schedule, Washington football team, Cincinnati. This is as bad as it gets. And we play the intro to the show, Fly, Eagles, Fly, on the road to victory. That's what you need. You need to find a way by hook or by crook to finally get this going in the right direction, because then you start talking about losing a team mentally if you continue to lose.
Listen, they're an injury-riddled team. We know that, but this is the NFL. It's a war of attrition. You've talked about it. I've talked about it for years. You have to figure out a way to play the hand you've been dealt. And I recall going back to Saturday's conversation, you asked me my thoughts on this game, and I remember I specifically said against Cincinnati that if this is a 17-13 type of game, a tight game in the fourth quarter, you giving a young team an opportunity to hang around. Now, albeit it ends up in a tie, the embattled quarterback, once again, shaky when he had to lead him down the field, did it with his legs, forcing the overtime. I'm just curious, before we move forward with the game against the Niners Sunday night in San Fran, any second guessing with Doug, some of the play calling late or not electing to go for the field goal?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the theme of that game. I think there was a lot of second guessing. If you think about Doug Peterson and what he has been as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. What was the name of his book, Rich? Fearless. And all of a sudden, Fearless turned to Feckless, as I said. If you go back to the end of regulation, you're talking about, okay, you're a banged-up team. You're trying to get – I've made this argument, so I'm going to run it by you, Rich. You're trying to get this team back on the right track.
Yep.
And I talked about the mental, the psyche part of it. If you go for two there, you win the game. You can say you get the quarterback back. He just made that big play. And guess what, Rich? Here's the worst-case scenario. You lose that game. We've talked a lot about the only reason the Eagles are relevant right now is because of the division and how bad the division is. You lose to Cincinnati. It's an AFC opponent. It doesn't mean anything as far as tiebreakers go. And then you see it as a whole, a tie. They actually pick up ground in the division. That's how bad the division is. So a loss is not the worst thing in the world. Cost-benefit analysis, when you can sort of bring up your team and bolster that psyche, I think that's worth talking about. And I asked Doug that after the game.
It's an excellent point. This is not like Carson's first year as a rookie when everyone was screaming, why are you taking a win away from this kid against Baltimore?
Yeah.
Totally different scenario. And it doesn't help that the field goal attempt is pushed back because of the penalty on Pryor. But it's a really intriguing point you bring up, and I would agree to that. I didn't give it too much thought because ultimately what you're doing is, like you said, if you lose the game, lose the battle, win the war, so to speak, because now you're giving your hey, look, we're going to die with our boots on, guys.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We went out. But that's the thing. Here's a quarterback that's made his bones, and I should say a head coach, in the NFL because of his aggressive nature. Where has it gone?
And that's the exact point. Then you move forward into overtime. And you're right. I mean, that's a bad situation, and Dave Thipp admitted he was not prepared for that false start. And a lot of that, by the way, had to do with Jason Peters leaving because Matt Pryor was in a situation he wasn't used to, got a little bit jittery, and all of a sudden you move back and they weren't prepared. Okay, what do? Do we kick the 64-yard field goal? It's probably not going to make it. Do you go for it on 4th and 10? 4th and 12? Probably not going to make it. But again, you send a message to your team. And by punting, by playing for a tie against the Cincinnati Bengals, Rich, this isn't the Kansas City Chiefs.
No.
If you're the Super Bowl champion, okay, yeah, let's get out of here with a tie.
Sure, which is a win.
Yeah. Cincinnati Bengals, so what do you say? You're saying to your offense, you can't make 4 and 12. You're saying to the kicker, which you probably can't, but he's made a 61-yard field goal. Give him a chance. You can't make a 64-yard field goal. And then you're saying to your defense, if those bad things happen, you can't run 12 seconds off the clock and keep them out of field goal range. So to me, you're saying to each phase of your team, I don't have confidence in you. And that goes again to Doug Peterson, fearless versus speckless. He's showing he doesn't believe in this team.
Let me play devil's advocate, flip side of that coin. Is it damned if you do, damned if you don't? Because we always talk about the reaction, the perception, how the fans will look upon it, how the players will look upon it. If they try to go for 2 and it fails, you're going to hear, oh, man, we were just scratching and clawing. You know what? We wouldn't have been okay with the tie. I mean, look, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate.
I hear you, and that's exactly what happened. Doug would have got killed by not only the fans but the media if they lose that game. Large portion of the media. Some of us, I think, would have seen what he was trying to do, but the vast majority would have said, yeah, what are you doing? But again, if you go back to Doug's book and you go back to his sort of backhanded slap at Doug Marrone in the AFC Championship game and how conservative he was, moving up to that Super Bowl 52. And he said, I'll never do that. Well, guess what? You did it. And, maybe people forget about it because it is week 3 against the Cincinnati Bengals. It's not a big spot. But you did it. Herm Edwards rules apply, Rich. You play to win the game. Doug Peterson didn't play to win that
Guess
game.
what? If they lose a couple more games, then Jim Mora's rules are going to start to apply.
Playoffs.
Exactly. Now, this is a banged-up, depleted team, albeit so is their opposition on Sunday night, the 49ers. You're talking about a 53-man roster, which is wonderful, but at the end of the day, they have 2 healthy wide receivers, the Philadelphia Eagles. There's going to be no Jackson. There's going to be no Jeffrey. You got a banged-up offensive line. It looks like, again, you're going to have to run the ball early and often in this one and establish the run. We saw what the 49ers were able to do against a bad Giant defense, even with Nick Mullins looking like Montana out there. But look, this is a capable team that can throw the ball, move the ball. They can put up some points. It just seems like if anything, the defense will have to make a couple plays Sunday, and then ultimately, I hate to keep saying the quarterback. It's hard to keep harping on it, but ultimately, who's this guy throwing to?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, he's going to be throwing to the same guys they finished up with against Cincinnati. So it's going to be Greg Ward, it's going to be John Hightower, and it's going to be Deontay Burnett, who's going to be elevated from the practice squad at some point today.
Right. Go through give me those 3. For the listening audience again now, for you fantasy football guys out there, right? Give me those names again.
Greg Ward, who is the number 1 receiver on the Philadelphia
Not Charlie
Eagles,
Ward, but go ahead.
the former quarterback at the University of Houston, so that's where you are. John Hightower, rookie 5th-round pick, who was out part of the week because he was sick. And then Deontay Burnett, who's a practice squad guy, who's going to be elevated because of the new rules, the new COVID-19 rules, as he was last week. And in some ways, Rich, you said the quarterback. I don't even want the quarterback to make plays at this point. I want the quarterback to play a clean game. And if you go back to last season in December when the Eagles made their playoff run, it's basically the same thing. He's relying on Greg Ward. He's relying on Boston Scott, Josh Perkins, players like that who you kind of chuckle at, and maybe you should. But you know what? He wasn't trying to go over the top. He wasn't trying to shameless plug, extend the play every single time. He was trying to live for another down, just doing what the offense was capable of doing and doing what the opposing defense allowed him to do. If he can scale back to that and play a clean game, you mentioned the 49ers. Let's be honest. Delaware Valley, it's provincial, man. They don't pay attention to what's going on anywhere else. Nick Mullins is the quarterback. Nick Bosa isn't there, and he was the most dominant edge rusher among the most dominant edge rushers, and a big part of the reason why the 49ers made the Super Bowl. They're so banged up in the backfield. Raheem Mostert.
Yep.
Jarek McKinnon's going to play, but he's got a rib injury. Now, they'll get some boost. George Kittle will be back, but he's dealing with a knee. Deebo Samuel's back, but he's got a Jones fracture in his foot. That's what he's coming back from. Rich, that ruined Des Bryant's career, that injury.
That's right. And it's a tough injury to overcome. And you're right. I mean, but again, Eagles fans, they don't want to hear that, right? Because in their mind, we're dealing with our own issues. Right now, the 49ers are laying a touchdown, which is amazing. Imagine if Jimmy G was, I don't know how much of a difference, but it's probably a 7.5, 8-point line. But I want to go back, before we hit the first break, I want to go back to something you said. It's come down to now where let's just have the quarterback now think about this, right? Let's have the quarterback just have a clean game. That's what happens when you're 0-2-1, when you haven't won a game and you've had bad losses and you've struggled 3 games into the NFL season. Yeah, that's where we're at.
Exactly, and it's scaled back, and even Doug Peterson talked about it earlier this week. He said maybe we'll have to go to tempo. We got to unclutter. He used that term. You never want to hear that term when somebody's talking about a quarterback. We want to unclutter his mind and just get him back focusing on the right things. And that's where the Eagles are. If you look, and it's still a small sample size, but if you look through the first 3 weeks of the season, Carson Wentz double the turnover-worthy plays of any other starting quarterback in this league. Double.
That's an alarming stat.
That's beyond alarming.
Yeah, that's something you would get from a first or second year quarterback.
Get from a rookie quarterback, somebody who hasn't played. Brett Rippon, Denver, ton of turnovers.
Slinging it the other night, by the way, on Thursday night. Yeah. By the way, I don't want to hear anyone ever again complain about how bad Thursday night football is. We don't get political on extending the play, but after what I saw earlier in the week, I'll take the Jets and Denver.
I know. And it is unbelievable what's going on in New York football. And obviously you're a Giants guy, but the Jets and the Giants
horrible.
It's amazing. I think Jets fans were crossing their finger that report was true.
Listen, this is something we'll talk when we close it out, when we kind of sweep around the league and whatnot. I want to get your thoughts on those two aforementioned teams, but we got plenty of time to dive into that. We got Martin Frank jumping on board today, right?
Martin Frank from the Wilmington News-Journal, and obviously, Martin does a lot more than the NFL. He's done the NBA over the years, Major League Baseball. Doc Rivers, official, the head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, so maybe we'll sneak in something about Martin.
You love your Sixers talk.
Well, I love to rip the Sixers. But also, we'll just sneak that in. It's easy to rip the Eagles, so that warms my heart as well. But, Joe Biden's favorite paper, we'll joke about that. He's the only guy. Martin's the only guy who can get an interview with a guy running for president, I think, because he works for the Wilmington News-Journal. But, all Eagles. This is AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio, Eagles 49ers. Best pregame show you'll get in South Jersey. Martin Frank coming up after the break.
Don't miss out. PropSwap has future tickets on Green Bay selling like crazy. Green Bay odds started at 40-1, and now they've shot down to 15-1. Smart gamblers have been buying and selling Green Bay on PropSwap and are making a killing, and in just a few weeks. Also, right now, find Kyler Murray to win MVP tickets available on PropSwap. He's red hot, and he has led Arizona to an amazing start. Hurry and get a piece of the action. Go to PropSwap.com right now or download the PropSwap app to learn how you can start making money. PropSwap, where America buys and sells sports bets.
Malamut and Associates is South Jersey's endorsed and preferred personal injury and workers' compensation firm, specializing in finding success during your greatest time of need. Managing partner Adam Malamut's history in South Jersey is heralded with recognition and awards. Yet his approach to law is rather simple: to serve each and every client until justice has been served. Get connected with Adam at malamutlaw.com and let the power of Malamut and Associates represent you when it matters most. Malamut and Associates, South Jersey's best.
Hurt at work? Go right now to injuredworkers.com. When you're injured on the job, your family is injured as well. Turn to a firm of legal attorneys that can help, that care, and that you can count on. Go to injuredworkers.com from Malamut and Associates. Nobody plans to get injured. When it happens, you need injuredworkers.com. Get the help you need from injuredworkers.com. Go to injuredworkers.com right now.
The secret is out about the award-winning Wycombe Public House. People travel from everywhere for their mouth-watering 10-ounce burgers and the area's best wings, nightly food specials, their turkey ball, and their homemade treats. Wycombe Public House is a craft beer paradise with 18 rotating drafts, including a weekly selection from acclaimed local brewery Tired Hands. So hop in the car and take a drive to Bucks County, because when you arrive at the Wycombe Public House, you'll know that you're home.
Before you play your next round of golf, meet Boston Scott Golf, where style meets performance. You know the feeling. Most of your golf shirts are too big, too tight, and don't look great. Get the classic style golf shirt with the modern feel and let pure feel take over the next time you play. BostonScottGolf.com. Boston Scott Golf. Feel good, play good, and enjoy a great round of golf. Visit now, BostonScottGolf.com. Use the code HARRY and save 20%.
Live from the Prop Swap studios of AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio, this is Extending the Play with John McMullen, presented by Prop Swap. PropSwap that ticket and cash in while the odds have improved. Once again, your host, John McMullen.
And welcome back, AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio from the Prop Swap studios here in South Jersey. Very excited to have my next guest on from the Wilmington News Journal, one of the best beat writers in town, in the Delaware Valley, to cover the Philadelphia Eagles. That's my buddy Martin Frank. And Martin, welcome to the program.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to get out of the way real quick. Martin does more than just the Eagles. He does the Philadelphia Sixers, as I mentioned before the break, covers them occasionally, even some Phillies action. Doc Rivers, the new head coach of the Sixers, they made it official. Before we get to the Eagles, because I feel like Martin and I start every week on this show talking about the struggles of Carson Wentz. What do you think Doc Rivers does for the Sixers?
What was that last part about Doc Rivers?
What do you think Doc brings to the Sixers? Not the Doc,
but
Doc Rivers.
Doc brings like a winning pedigree. I mean, the guy's won everywhere he's been. He's won a championship with the Celtics. He's got experience dealing with superstar personalities. I mean, when he was with the Celtics, he won with, Garnett and Paul Pierce and those guys that the Celtics had. When he was with the Clippers, he had a lot of personalities there too. And no, he never won a championship with them, but he got them pretty far into the playoffs and everything. So, the guy knows how to win. He knows how to make, star players believe in him and in the system. And that's going to be obviously the test with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. So, we'll find out. I think they made a great hire with Rivers. I was really, pleasantly surprised, actually, that they went out and got him and, got it over with quickly.
Yeah, Martin, I was pleasantly surprised, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I wanted to start with something positive until we get into the negative, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. You and I joked when we set this thing up, and we were going to have various beat writers do this show, kind of rotate them in and out, and you joked, let's just hope the Eagles aren't 0-3 when it's your turn. Well, they're not 0-3, but they're 0-2-1 after coming off a tie with the Cincinnati Bengals, which obviously is not a powerhouse team. We can start with all the issues, and there are plenty of them, but you have to start with the quarterback. You have to start with the turnover sort of worthy plays, twice as many as other NFL starting quarterbacks. So we'll ask you, I've been asking everybody, what exactly is going on with Carson Wentz from your perspective?
That's like a great question, because, what we've seen from Carson this year is stuff that we've never really seen before. I mean, the guy has thrown 2 interceptions in every game, so that's 6 through 3 games. And you think about, like, the last 3 seasons, he's thrown 7. Last year he played all 16 games. He threw 7 the year before. He played, 11, 12 games. And then, in 2017, when he was on his way to being the MVP, he threw 7 interceptions in 13 games. And here we are 3 games in, he's already thrown 6. So, he's just making bad decisions. The offensive line has kind of been a mess. So, I'm sure that has something to do with it. His wide receivers can't stay healthy. I mean, you look at the injury report for this weekend. I mean, what is it? Top 4 are out. 5 out of 6, aren't going to play. So, there are a lot of factors. I mean, Carson's also making bad decisions. Maybe he's feeling like he has to do everything, carry the whole team on his shoulders, so to speak. And he's just trying to force things that aren't there. I mean, it's just been one thing after another. I mean, it hasn't been good, and it has been very uncharacteristic of him. So you'd like to think that he would figure all this out and get things turned around. And tomorrow night would be a good time to start doing that.
Yeah, it would be a very good time. And we're talking with Martin Frank at AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio from the Wilmington News Journal. By the way, I got to ask you also if you have a direct line to Joe Biden, because we can't. You're his favorite newspaper, so we want to get some info on the election as well. But when we talk about Carson, earlier this week, Martin, Doug used the term unclutter when he was talking about Carson Wentz's mind. And if you go all the way back to the one time we got to talk so far this season with Rich Scandarello, who is sort of a Kyle Shanahan disciple, knows a lot of things about Kyle Shanahan's offense. He called Carson an elite-level processor, compared him to Matt Ryan when it comes to pre-snap, post-snap. And
I think I asked him that question. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, we go from elite processor to unclutter his mind. I don't know how we got here, and I don't know if you can just blame it on the lack of talent, because if you think about last year when the Eagles made the run, who was that? It was Greg Ward. It was Boston Scott. It was Josh Perkins.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, how do you go from being that elite processor to, trying to have his mind uncluttered, like dumbing down the offense in a sense, just so he doesn't, throw dumb passes. I mean, it's crazy. And I don't know how to answer that question, to be honest with you. I mean, there are so many. There's so many things to process here. I mean, like a guy who had this mind, like a beautiful mind, so to speak, with all these algorithms going on in his head, to all of a sudden, let's dumb it down and, make him complete the easy passes. But maybe sometimes with the struggling quarterback, that's what you have to do. I mean, you talk about the screen game a lot. Maybe that's something that gets him going, but the Eagles' screen game has been kind of a disaster so far this season, so I don't even know if that'll work. I mean, maybe you just give the ball to Miles Sanders 25 times during the game, and every now and then you mix in a pass, like a high percentage type of pass. Maybe that'll do it. I don't know.
Yeah, and you bring up Miles. I agree with you. If there's one foundational piece, it seems like maybe the Eagles can try to steady the ship with, it's Miles Sanders. But then you talk about that number of touches, and I think it was 23 against the Rams and then 22 against the Bengals. Yeah. And already he's had the hamstring. Now he's got the glute problem. And he's 5'11", 210. This isn't Adrian Peterson. This isn't Earl Campbell. Do you think he's the type of running back that can handle touching it 25 or even 30 times a week and be there for 16 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard thing to say. It's just kind of ironic because, since Doug Peterson's become the coach, they always had a rotation. So you never had to worry about, a guy getting overused. I mean, you go back to, his first year, he had Ryan Matthews and I forget who the other guy was now. A bunch of guys.
LeGarrett's year?
What's that?
Was that LeGarrette Blount's year?
That was the next year. It was LeGarrette Blount and Jay Ajayi. And then, he always had at least two guys who he could split the snaps with pretty evenly. And, they want to ride Miles Sanders, but, they still don't seem to be giving him the ball enough to justify that. Like, if Miles Sanders is your guy, he should be getting 25 to 30 touches a game. And maybe they've been afraid to do it so far this year because, he missed pretty much all the preseason with his hamstring injury, and now, he's got the glute issue. So, it's kind of interesting because they never upgraded the running back position during the offseason. There were guys out there, most recently Devontae Freeman, and they decided, Miles is going to be the main guy, and, Boston Scott and Corey Clement will be good enough to fill in the void here and there. But, we haven't seen much from those guys either. So, they're kind of stuck. I mean, yes, against the 49ers, they have to give the ball to Miles Sanders more than the 22 to 23 touches he had in the last couple games. And, but then they run the risk, maybe he gets hurt again and he's got to miss, entire games, like he missed the first game. So it's kind of a catch-22 with them because, yes, they need to give the ball to Miles Sanders, but if they do, he might get hurt.
Yeah, and, it is frustrating because I think the one part where at least you can give Carson Wentz a little dispensation, I would say, is the fact that the receiver position is so banged up. And, by the way, the guys, when they were playing, they weren't playing that well. When you talk about Deshaun Jackson and even Jalen Reagor, people were excited. The explosion was there. Everybody saw the athleticism, but the route running wasn't there. And obviously, Alshon Jeffrey, I think he'll be back for Pittsburgh in Week 5, but we'll see. And that's what the Eagles kind of have targeted. So we're down to what they finished last week against Cincinnati. Greg Ward, John Hightower, and they're probably going to elevate Deontay Burnett from the practice squad later today. That's not good. Am I overreacting and saying that's not good?
No, I think you're pretty much hit the nail on the head with that. But, we saw, last year, you talk about Greg Ward, those 4 games, he was the best receiver. He caught the game-winning touchdown pass against Washington in the final minute. He had the most receptions out of anybody. I mean, he's a competent receiver. He had the 29-yard touchdown reception last week against the Bengals. I mean, I think in that case he'll be fine. Deontay Burnett has kind of played in some games here and there. I mean, he's caught a few passes. It's the other guys. You mentioned John Hightower. He's a rookie. He's playing in his 4th game. He's had, he had a couple drops. It's kind of tough for him to beat, press coverage at the line. I think there's probably a really good chance they'll activate Quez Watkins off IR, and, it'll be his NFL debut. Who knows what he's going to be able to do. It's not a great situation by any means. And this is all, part of what Carson Wentz is throwing to every week. I mean, it's hard. And, you mentioned even in the first game when they had Reagor and Deshaun Jackson, Wentz overthrew those guys too. I mean, Reagor had a 55-yard reception, but, Wentz also overthrew him on one play, which actually Reagor kind of took the blame on himself, saying he slowed down at one point. Deshaun's been an interesting situation with him because, the first game he played, 54% of the snaps. And then in the second game, he wasn't even targeted at all in the first half. And then they finally started throwing the ball to him, but they were short passes. And now he's got the hamstring issue. I mean, there's something fishy going on with that, if you ask me. It just seems kind of strange.
Martin, speaking of fishy, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside coming up with a kidney injury. You don't even talk about him anymore. And I thought, and let me get your thoughts before we hit the break if we want to keep you to talk about the 49ers on the other side. But J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Earlier this week, did you get a little frustration feeling from Doug Peterson when he was talking about JJ? Because, last week against Cincinnati, that was his opportunity to sort of turn this narrative around. And all of a sudden, he comes up in pregame with this calf injury, another soft tissue problem for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think I get the feeling the Eagles are saying, you know what, we're going to turn the page. To use Chip Kelly's quote, the best ability is availability. And I think they were frustrated that JJ didn't try and do a little bit more. He played a little bit, but by the end of that game, he was off the field.
Well, it's I don't know what to make of JJ because, he had the same opportunity towards the end of last season. I mean, Deshaun was out, Alshon was out, Nelson Aguilar was out, and they're pretty much begging for anybody to step up. I mean, Greg Ward did, and, that would have been a great opportunity for JJ, but, he had these little nagging injuries back then as well, and, he didn't really do anything, and, obviously everybody knew at that point it was a disappointment. And then he comes back in the summer, and he has a great training camp. I mean, you were there every day. You saw him making those catches, and, at one point he high-pointed a ball out on the sideline. He made a nice diving catch in the end zone, and you're like, all right, that's the JJ that, everybody was expecting. And then the season starts, and it's the same thing as last year. I mean, now he's hurt. He's had a great, this would have been the perfect opportunity for him to step up and say, I'm not the bust that everyone thinks I am. And, and all of a sudden they're praising his blocking again. They're trying to explain why he gets so many snaps but so few targets. And I think at this point, I get the feeling that they're kind of have the feelings they had with Matt Collins last year. If you remember, he went like 6 or 7 games without even as much as a target or a reception. And, I think they're just like, oh, man, I think at some point we got to cut bait. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
Martin,
it's just not working out.
Martin, you hit the nail on the head. When you're a receiver and they start talking about your blocking, that is
like the kiss of death, right?
That is a clear signal that things are in trouble. But we're going to hold you after the break to start talking about the Eagles' opponent this week, the even more banged up, I would argue, San Francisco 49ers. Stay tuned. More Extending the Play on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio.
Don't miss out. PropSwap has future tickets on Green Bay selling like crazy. Green Bay odds started at 40-1, and now they've shot down to 15-1. Smart gamblers have been buying and selling Green Bay on PropSwap and are making a killing, and in just a few weeks. Also, right now, find Kyler Murray to win MVP tickets available on PropSwap. He's red hot, and he has led Arizona to an amazing start. Hurry and get a piece of the action. Go to PropSwap.com right now or download the PropSwap app to learn how you can start making money. PropSwap, where America buys and sells sports bets.
Del Val Insurance wants to save you 40% on your car insurance right now, and they will do it today. Here's managing partner Jim Muehlbrunner.
A lot of people pay a lot more premium than they need to, and they may not have the coverage to justify what they're paying.
There's no charge for the complimentary insurance review. You will save money, and you will connect with a company that is an advocate, not a broker. Go to dvigi.com or simply call Jim at 215-354-0122. That's 215-354-0122.
I've met clients that think that I, as an independent agent, charge a fee versus going direct to Geico or going direct to Progressive. We do not charge a fee.
Let Del Val Insurance save you up to 40% on your car insurance. Get your complimentary review. Call Jim Muehlbrunner directly at 215-354-0122. 215-354-0122. Your savings are a phone call away.
Hurt at work? Go right now to InjuredWorkers.com. When you're injured on the job, your family is injured as well. Turn to a firm of legal attorneys that can help, that care, and that you can count on. Go to InjuredWorkers.com from Malamut and Associates. Nobody plans to get injured. When it happens, you need InjuredWorkers.com. Get the help you need from InjuredWorkers.com. Go to InjuredWorkers.com right now.
Malamut and Associates is South Jersey's endorsed and preferred personal injury and workers' compensation firm, specializing in finding success during your greatest time of need. Managing partner Adam Malamut's history in South Jersey is heralded with recognition and awards, yet his approach to law is rather simple: to serve each and every client until justice has been served. Get connected with Adam at malamutlaw.com and let the power of Malamut and Associates represent you when it matters most. Malamut and Associates, South Jersey's best.
What would you do with an extra $284,783 in retirement? Sure, it sounds too good to be true, but that's how much you can save in taxes during your retirement with your IRA and 401k, thanks to the defensive tax planning strategies from Thrive Financial Services. Of course, everyone's situation is different, but if you have an IRA or 401k, learn how much money you can save with a free IRA and 401k analysis. This free analysis can be done over the phone or video conference. Call to schedule your free analysis now at 215-987-2450. Remember, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. Call David and Karen Bazar and Brett Elam of Thrive Financial Services to get your free IRA and 401k analysis. Call 215-987-2450. That's 215-987-2450 for Thrive Financial Services.
Live from the Prop Swap studios of AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio, this is Extending the Play with John McMullen. Presented by Prop Swap. PropSwap that ticket and cash in while the odds have improved. Once again, your host, John McMullen.
We are back, AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio, Prop Swap Studios, talking the most in-depth Eagles 49ers preview in South Jersey. And to get that done, we have one of the best Eagles beat writers in the business, Martin Frank, from the Wilmington News Journal, and also in South Jersey. You can read him in the Courier Post, by the way, as well. Martin, welcome back, and we want to kind of shift gears toward the 49ers, who are obviously the reigning NFC champions, but the team the Eagles are going to face on Sunday Night Football, big stage, national television, is not that team that was in the Super Bowl. It starts with the quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo is out with an ankle injury. Also, though, Nick Bosa, I would argue that he was the linchpin that kind of put the 49ers over the top. He was so dominant as an edge rusher. He's gone for the year with a torn ACL. Richard Sherman, their cornerback, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame someday, is injured right now. So when you talk about the Eagles, and it's fair to say the Eagles are very banged up, the team they're about to face is just as banged up. And does that help the Eagles at all as far as moving forward? Very difficult trip, cross-country. How do you see this one unfolding?
Well, it's an interesting dilemma because, it's pretty much an all-star team of, players who are out for both teams. I mean, if you mentioned some of the 49ers guys, but, you look at their defensive line. You mentioned Bosa. I think Solomon Thomas is out for the year. He's on IR. D. Ford isn't going to play. That's three of their best defensive linemen right there, and they traded, DeForest Buckner to Indianapolis. So pretty much their starting defensive line from last year is not going to be there Sunday night. And I think that right there is the key for the Eagles. I mean, their offensive line has to dominate the 49ers defensive line, which is now, in second stringers, they signed Ziggy Ansah, guys like that who, for the Eagles, that has to be kind of like their big matchup that they have to take advantage of. You also mentioned, their secondary. I think they got a couple other guys out besides Sherman, too, like Witherspoon, I think, is out. Somebody else as well. You mentioned Garoppolo. They're going to be playing Nick Mullins at quarterback, and also Raheem Mostert, their top running back, is out.
He was with the crazy. Eagles. You got to say that every time you say Raheem Mostert in the Delaware Valley, you got to point out he started.
That's right.
Eagles.
You have to mention the fact that he was Eagles training camp hero.
He is.
That was the Chip Kelly era, correct?
Correct, and he has turned into a really solid running back. Tremendous speed, but obviously he's not going to be around. Jerick McKinnon, even who's their sort of bell cow back, and interestingly. He's missed the last 2 seasons with injuries, is finally back, but he's banged up again with a rib injury. So it goes on and on. It's like drugstore receipts, Martin, with these 2 teams. They're so long. The injury list are so long. But one thing I got from the Eagles this week, and mainly the defenders, I was kind of shocked a little bit that they didn't seem to even – play into the change of quarterbacks from Jimmy Garoppolo to Nick Mullins. It was you can look at it a couple ways and say, well, Jimmy G's not that good because they think Nick Mullins is the exact same thing, but also more the 49ers run game. And it seems like everything Kyle Shanahan does is built off that running game. And I think Jim Schwartz said Doug called this team the faceless 49ers because they're not going to change even though there's been a change at quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. And I asked Doug that on Friday, like, how do you prepare for, the quarterback situation when you have, Garoppolo's probably not going to play, and now he's definitely not going to play. And then, go to Nick Mullins. Do you prepare any differently for him? And he said, no, you prepare like they're going to run the ball because that's who they are and that's what they do. Everything starts from there. And, sure, I think Mullins threw for 343 yards last week against the Giants, but, then again, it's the Giants. But, yeah, the strength of their offense starts with the running game. So, even if Mullins is in there, I mean, his job basically is to get the ball to McKinnon now and, go from there and build off of that. It's kind of an interesting thing because the 49ers, they put up good offensive numbers, despite the fact that, I heard there was even talk in San Francisco that, is Jimmy Garoppolo's job in jeopardy? I mean, he wasn't good in the Super Bowl last year in the fourth quarter, and, he was off to kind of a rocky start so far this season. And now here you got Mullins, and he comes in, and they scored 36 points last week. So,
yeah, Kyle Shanahan tried to shut that down, Martin, because there were people saying, maybe Nick Mullins, if he continues to play the way he has, that he could win that job. Kyle wanted to shut that down, but I kind of agree with you. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a little bit overrated for whatever reason. But certainly when you get to the Super Bowl, that plays into it. But, I think I want to focus on that running game and look at it. The Eagles historically under Jim Schwartz have been very good stopping the run. Right. So in theory, it should be strength versus strength. I do look at this Eagles defense, and I think people would be surprised. It's a top 10 defense. Granted, it's a small sample size, but I think they're 5th in the NFL right now in defense, which is pretty amazing. They're top 10 versus the rush. They're top 10 versus the pass. They're top 10 in third down defense. But the one thing they can't do and haven't been able to do is turn the football over, whereas Carson we talked about in the first segment. So the Eagles are 32nd in the NFL, I think -7 in the turnover ratio. Does it simply boil down to whoever, if the Eagles can play a clean game, can they beat a banged-up 49ers team?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And the thing about the 49ers is they don't make mistakes because, what we were just talking about. I mean, their primary focus is to run the ball, and, they don't throw the high-risk type of passes that the Eagles have been trying, or at least Carson Wentz has been trying and stuff like that. So it's going to be hard for them to get a turnover unless, the 49ers start fumbling the ball a lot, but there hasn't really been much evidence of that. But it is kind of interesting because, you mentioned, the Eagles' run defense, and, their defense, the Eagles' defensive line right now is pretty much fully intact. And this is probably going to be, I know the defensive line has played together like the last couple of weeks, but, you got to remember that Javon Hargrave is just still kind of rounding into shape because he hadn't practiced all during the preseason. So technically, he should be like in pretty good shape. You're finally going to see like that defensive tackle rotation with him, Fletcher Cox, Malik Jackson. You got Derek Barnett, who's going to be back for his third game now, and he didn't practice at all during the preseason. So this could be like the first game where the four of those guys, along with along with Brandon Graham, have a really good rotation going. And I'll add Josh Sweat to that too, because he's been probably one of their best defensive ends so far this season.
Yeah, AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. We're talking with Martin Frank from the Wilmington News-Journal, Camden Courier-Post, one of the best Eagles beat writers there is. And I do want to bring up the fact that while we have centered on injuries, the 49ers are getting two playmakers back. It starts with George Kittle, who might be the best tight end in football, but also Deebo Samuel, who helps in so many ways. Not only as the 49ers' best receiver, but he's also that jet sweep guy and can impact the running game as far as that goes. And we all know how that important is to Kyle Shanahan to set up play action. Coming off a Jones fracture, though, Martin, and I was talking to Rich earlier in the show, that ruined Des Bryant's career. So how much of an impact do you think a Deebo Samuel can coming straight off injured reserve, and even bigger George Kittle, because Nate Gary has struggled, to put it mildly, in pass coverage?
Yeah, well, I mean, Samuel gives them that speed element, that pretty much every team is dying for. I mean, especially like the Eagles. I mean, who's their speed receiver this weekend? I don't know.
Come on, you got a track team. You got John Hightower. You got Quez Watkins.
Yeah, right. Okay. Good luck with that. But Samuel gives them that speed element. He can get the ball in space, and, we've seen Eagles linebackers, chasing futilely after receivers and tight ends. And, that's another, you mentioned George Kittle. I mean, he could technically have a field day. He's probably the best tight end in the NFL right now. And he's dangerous over the middle. He can go deep. I think I saw something where he ran a faster 40 time than Jalen Mills, who's a safety and was playing cornerback before. So, Kittle can beat you in any number of ways. He can beat you with the power, the power game. He can beat you down the field. He's a great blocker. He's going to be tough for them, and he's coming back. I think he missed the last two games. You got Samuel. You got another speed element in there. I mean, that's going to be tough for the Eagles secondary and the linebackers to keep up with throughout an entire game. I mean, I'm sure one of them at some point will break free and have a big game.
All right, Martin, last one for you. I want to thank you for joining the program on AM 1490 this morning, and we got to put you on record. Give us your prediction. Eagles 49ers, big stage, Sunday Night Football. Can the Eagles get off the snide?
Well, I think it's going to be like, if you put this game on paper, say the Eagles traveling all the way across the country to play the 49ers, defending NFC champion. The Eagles haven't won a game. Their offense is a mess. Their, top four wide receivers are out. You would think it'd be an easy 49ers win, but I can see the Eagles finding some way, to keep the game interesting, keep it close, but I just don't see them winning in the end. I predict 49ers 28, Eagles 24.
I thought we were going to get some optimism. I thought the Doug Peterson trademark spot where everybody thinks he's going to lose, and I thought Martin was going to give the Eagles a win. Ultimately, he sides with the 49ers. Want to thank you for joining the program, Martin. Appreciate it. And he'll be back later in the season as well. Stay tuned on AM 1490. More Extending the Play after the break.
Don't miss out. PropSwap has future tickets on Green Bay selling like crazy. Green Bay odds started at 40-1, and now they've shot down to 15-1. Smart gamblers have been buying and selling Green Bay on PropSwap and are making a killing, and in just a few weeks. Also, right now, find Kyler Murray to win MVP tickets available on PropSwap. He's red hot, and he has led Arizona to an amazing start. Hurry and get a piece of the action. Go to PropSwap.com right now or download the PropSwap app to learn how you can start making money. PropSwap, where America buys and sells sports bets.
Malamut and Associates is South Jersey's endorsed and preferred personal injury and workers' compensation firm, specializing in finding success during your greatest time of need. Managing partner Adam Malamut's history in South Jersey is heralded with recognition and awards. Yet his approach to law is rather simple: to serve each and every client until justice has been served. Get connected with Adam at malamutlaw.com and let the power of Malamut and Associates represent you when it matters most. Malamut and Associates, South Jersey's best.
Hurt at work? Go right now to injuredworkers.com. When you're injured on the job, your family is injured as well. Turn to a firm of legal attorneys that can help, that care, and that you can count on. Go to injuredworkers.com from Malamut and Associates. Nobody plans to get injured. When it happens, you need injuredworkers.com. Get the help you need from injuredworkers.com. Go to injuredworkers.com right now.
My name is Frank Halber, and I serve as president of Ask Me Local 1637. Every day, countless lives are devastated in our country at the hands of the opioid epidemic. Whether sparked by a pain-related work injury or other issues, many of those afflicted are family members, friends, and co-workers. It may even be you in desperate need of help. No one is immune to the effects of this terrible epidemic. If you or someone you know or love is suffering from addiction to opioids or other substances, don't wait another day to reach out to someone and seek help. I have personally felt the pain that this epidemic inflicts, and I beg of you to tell a friend, a family member, or a professional now and get the support you need like your life depends on it, because it does. Remember, it's not where you start the race that counts, it's that you finish that matters the most. My name is Frank Halber of Ask Me Local 1637. I'm a labor leader and organized labor cares.
Live from the PropSwap studios of AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio, this is Extending the Play with John McMullen. Presented by PropSwap. PropSwap.ticket and cash in while the odds have improved. Once again, your host, John McMullen.
All right, back a couple minutes before we get out of here. Rich Quinones here. Johnny Mac on the other side. We got everything going on in break. We're talking COVID. We're talking injuries. We're talking coaches getting fired. We're talking early draft picks, Sixers. Martin Frank, 28-24. Like
Steve. He gave us a curveball. I thought he was going to go the optimistic route.
Really?
He did. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have to be objective, do you not?
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if some of these beat reporters got paid by predictions, a lot of them would be out of jobs.
I'd be out of a job. I mean, how do you pick the Eagles to lose to the Washington football team and the Cincinnati Bengals? You can't do that. Now, I thought, the Rams, that's fine. Pick against them there. Pick against them in this spot. Remember, this is the first cross-country trip in the COVID environment, so everything is different. And the Eagles haven't handled that kind of stuff well. Let's be honest. I mean, I thought that was going to be a strength of this organization as we start this Eagles Intel segment. It hasn't been. I think they have been maybe that's the biggest disappointment to me of all, because this is new for everybody. As we clean the studio in between.
I was telling, I told Johnny Mac, I'm so OCD and OCD. I'm just constantly wiping down stuff. And it's fitting, right? You wipe the slate clean. I mean, that's what the Eagles need to do.
That's what you have to do.
With a win on Sunday. And, again, I'm at the point, and I've mentioned it during the week on my show, 4 to 6, Tuesday, Wednesday, back your play, right here on AM 1490. Checks in the mail, Johnny Mac. Yeah. I've mentioned it as well. At the end of the day, you have to just get a win to right the ship, and it's only going to be for a week. I still don't believe this team as presently constructed, is going to be a playoff team.
Well, yeah, I think there's two ways to look at this particular game, and it does come down to the fact that if you lose again, you've gone a whole month of football without a win. I mean, that is a psyche destroyer, and it's going to affect the fan base. It's going to affect people in the building. It's going to affect everything. On the other hand, if you find a way to get a win by hook or by crook, some way against this banged-up Niners team that we've talked about, all of a sudden you look at this division. You don't, Dallas, but the Giants aren't going to be involved in this. The Washington football team isn't going to be involved in this. So one win will turn this team into perhaps the NFC's favorites. That's how bad this division is. Again. And ultimately, it's going to come down to the two Eagles-Cowboys games, I think, and at some point. But you got to get that first win. You got to get that first win, or everything can go out the window. Because then you start coming. At some point, you're going to have to say, well, the Eagles should be in the same conversation with the Giants and the Washington football team.
I didn't want to leave you astray as we start to wrap it up. Was that the piggyback part of the Eagles intel for this week?
No, the piggyback is Rich Scandarello, because Rich, former offensive coordinator in Denver.
You mentioned him in the past.
He was the quarterback's coach under Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco before he got the OC job in Denver. Even before that, he left the college ranks to take a quality control job in Atlanta because he liked Kyle Shanahan's offense so much, he just wanted to learn under the guy. So he knows he was brought in to bring a lot of those elements to the Philadelphia offense. Hasn't worked to this point. But nobody knows Kyle Shanahan as well as Rich Scandarello. So perhaps that's that one intangible that the Eagles can use, more so from the defensive side. Eagles can't figure out how to implement that kind of stuff on the offensive side of the football.
I'll give you my thoughts on the game before you close it out with your thoughts and predictions. I think this is – how many years do we talk about the Eagles getting right, and this is a game where everyone goes against them? Now, I'll tell you right now, I'm not picking the Eagles until they win a game. I like San Francisco in this one. I can see a 28-17, 28-21 type of game. But if they want to make it close, if they have a chance of winning this one, I'll kind of go back to what I said last week. You might need a special teams play. You might need a blocked punt, a blocked field goal, flip the field, something to galvanize, to spark this team, because I just don't believe we're going to see it with this offense.
Well, it's interesting, Rich, because the Eagles I mentioned are 32nd in the NFL. That's dead last.
Real quick, Johnny Mac, a lot of issues with San Fran with their special units teams.
Yeah.
A lot when it comes to extra points and PATs and field goals.
And they're 32nd in turnover ratio, so dead last in the league. The one turnover they created was on special teams. So maybe that is something where they can build on that, if they can flip the field, do something of that nature. But I think more importantly, as I said, it's a clean game. But I'm with you, Rich. I cannot pick this team anymore until they win this game. This is the trademark Doug Peterson spot. Everybody thinks the Eagles are losing this game. I do think it's going to be tighter than people imagine. But I also have the 49ers winning a field goal game 23-20. Just from what you said, I cannot pick this football team until they actually win a game at this point. And I think that is something they have to prove, and that's what I've said throughout this program. By any means necessary, you have to find a way to win a football game. And it starts on Sunday night on the biggest stage in the regular season on Sunday Night Football. Whether the Eagles can get that done or not is at this point
yet to be seen.
Yeah, yet to be seen. And the fact is, you have a quarterback that is struggling. No matter what the Eagles say, they have a quarterback that is struggling with his confidence, and with the fact that perhaps Jalen Hurts is behind him. We'll get into that next week on extending the play. Ooh. We'll get on that Monday night on the Fix with Ryan. I'm sure you'll get on it.
Absolutely. I'll get on it Tuesday and Wednesday. Yeah,
4 to 6 back to play.
Yeah, absolutely. So you catch me Tuesday and Wednesday with Back Your Play. Johnny Mac, great job as always. We appreciate Martin Frank jumping on board. Don't forget, follow Johnny Mac on Twitter. Everything's posted on at 1490 Sportsbet on Twitter. Also, the Jacob Media YouTube channel. We get these shows up and running so you guys get your Eagles fix as always. We'll do it again next Saturday, my friend.
We will do it again. Keep extending the play. I'll see you Monday night with Ryan, and we will break down Eagles 49ers on demand, Jacob Media Partners, and AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio.
You've been listening to Extending the Play with John McMullen on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. Today's program was sponsored by the Malumet Law Office and Remax Real Estate, as well as Bet Rivers Party Poker and Dunkin' Donuts. This has been a Jacob Media Partners production.
You're hearing AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. Listen online at 1490sportsbettingradio.com.